Fluency isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing what to do when you don't. Now, let me show you what that really means. So as promised, this is the video where I tell you the one mindset shift you need to make in your language studies to make everything 10 times easier. And it is about 1% of progress. It's okay to take tiny steps in your language studies. 1% of progress is better than 0. This is something I tell everybody in Fluency Mastery Lab all the time. One of our principles in the community is about reminding ourselves what's our 1% of progress when we're having a rough day, when we're having a low energy day, a day where we don't have as much time as we wanted. What is our 1% of progress? So my first question for you is, what is your 1% of progress in your language studies? What does 1% of progress look like to you? And I want you to go back to the levels of expectations. Now, here's the video if you have not seen that yet. And a brief, quick overview of what that is 3 levels of expectations: good, better, and best. Good is your low, your bare minimum, what you can get done on a day where you have very little time and energy. And best is on the day where you have tons of time and energy and what you're going to be able to do. That's not your everyday expectation. And so I really want you to take some time to figure out, what does 1% of progress look like for you? Because if you're making 1% of progress, unless you have a strict deadline, like you have a trip that you're going on, you have a job that you're going to have in a couple months or whatever it might be, or you're visiting family at a specific time, most of us set deadlines on our own in our language studies, which is why SMART goals are a thing that so many people know of and talk about when goal setting. Part of the SMART goals is setting the time deadline so that you're not just wandering, what I like to call routine wandering, doing whatever it is that you want to do, or more specifically, doing things that are related to the thing that you're supposed to be doing, but is not what you should be doing. So what does that 1% of progress look like for you? The next thing I want you to think about is, what do you enjoy doing in your language studies? Because the reality is that language learning can and should be fun, especially if you are like me and you are an introvert and a perfectionist, or if you're just one of those two things. When we're introverts learning languages, a lot of people feel like introverts are shy people or socially anxious. That is completely false. Introverts are just about energy. Extroverts is just about energy. Where do you get energy from? Not who you like being around. Where do you get your energy from? And a lot of people, for example, when they meet me, say, you don't really seem like an introvert, Bront'e. It's because I'm outgoing. I love to talk and to be around people, to share interests and things like that. But after I am with my friends and hanging out, I need 3 to 5 business days to recover because all of my energy has been thrown out into the ether. And that's also why when I'm teaching, after I finish whatever teaching that I've done, I'm like, okay, I need a break. Talk to me, please. Because my introvert energy needs that recovery time, and my recovery time is solo. I need to be alone. That's why during my lunch times when I was teaching 5th grade to middle school, I would have my headphones on and I would be reading. Don't talk to me during my lunch. That is a sacred time for me to recover so that the next 3 hours of my teaching, I can actually show up and be energetic. And then I go home. So the question here is, what do you enjoy doing in your language studies? How can you make it fun? Here are 3 different ways, all connected, that I make things fun, both for myself and for the people I work with in various ways. The first way is inside of Fluency Mastery Lab, we have monthly themes. We have a monthly skill focus that we do. For example, January is speaking and February is listening practice. Within that theme of the skill that we're focused on, each week has a different focus. We might do podcasts, music, or audiobooks for listening, and I give prompts. All of these things to help everyone inside of the community not overthink the process, like we talked about in the last video, not to overthink the process, but instead make some decisions and take some action. So if it helps you to choose a theme on a skill focus and then maybe a theme within that skill focus, do that and see how that goes for you. How can you make it more fun? Now, the second way that I like to make things more fun, and this is actually something that I started to do off of a suggestion that my friend made about something that I created. And so I also create these daily dialogue calendars, and this gives you a daily prompt for literally every day of the year. The original goal of this was for speaking and dialogue, but I never thought about using it elsewhere. And so when she suggested using it for journaling, I was like, I'm just going to use my own thing for my writing practice. Similarly, if you want to look at the national day calendars, there's one for the US and it has National Pancake Day, National Hug Your Dog Day, National Crossword Day, and you can use those as ideas of what you can write about for the day or speak about for the day if you're not sure of what to focus on. Or you can grab the daily dialogue calendar and I will do that for you. And then the last way that I like to make things fun, rather than focusing on a skill theme, sometimes I don't want to do that. I actually want to think about topics instead. So I will set themes like in Polyglot Delight, where we'll say we're focused on food or technology. We're focused on city escapes. Within that theme, then we'll choose some skills. So if I'm focused on music and dance, then I'm doing writing, reading, reading and listening. So I'm improving my listening by listening to music. I am improving my reading by reading some articles about dance, maybe about specific dance moves or dance across different countries and cultures. And then I'm writing about it or speaking about it, recording myself talking about it, whatever skills I want to focus on with the theme of dance and music. That's another way you can think about this for your own language studies. You can create a theme on a topic you want to explore and then choose the skills, the resources, the strategies you want to use under that. Or you can just join Polyglot Delights and I will do that for you. The goal here is to choose a theme, either a skill theme or a topic theme, and use that to make it more fun. You can even choose activities as your theme. One of the things that I recommended to a couple people inside of Fluency Mastery Lab is to create a fun list. Literally write down the things that you enjoy, that you find fun. Are these things that then can translate into your language studies? Can you, for example, with games, change the language of the games that you're playing in order to play the game, but also practice the languages? How can you blend these things together? And then finally, the thing I want you to keep in mind when it comes to that mindset shift of 1% of progress is that our confidence comes from repetition and exposure. So repetition is the practice. Get more practice in the languages that you're learning. And if you need more ideas, not only do I have tons in lots of videos, but literally the previous video to this series, I give 3 different ways on practicing to help you stop overthinking and take action. So watch that video if you have not watched it yet, and remind yourself that the repetition and the exposure is way more important than getting it right the first time. Perfectionist, you're not going to get it right the first time. Sometimes we'll get lucky. Sometimes, our brilliance will help us out with that, but sometimes we won't, and we need to be okay with that. So my question for you here is, how are you not just learning, but practicing? How are you also practicing the things that you're learning? Some of the strategies or resources are things like immersion, comprehensible input, laddering languages, sentence building. I'll also put them in the description so you can watch those, but brief overview so you know which ones to choose for yourself, because you don't need to watch all the things if they don't really help you where you are right now. So immersion is just surrounding yourself with the language in as many ways as possible. That's having the audio around you, watching content, reading, any ways that you can make your environment more the target language, the better. And you do this as little or as much as you can handle and want to do. Now, when it comes to comprehensible input is input, so listening or reading, that is just above the level that you can understand. So it's not, I can understand everything. It's, I can understand most of it. And there's just a little bit that's tricky for me. That's your comprehensible input. So what that level is going to look different for every person. But I absolutely love this because this weans me off of subtitles. I refuse to watch subtitles with comprehensible input, which means that I am actively listening and trying to understand. It's the one time that I make sure to do that. Or I will say sometimes the subtitles are in the language that I'm learning. So if I'm watching something in Russian, the subtitles will also be in Russian versus in English or in Japanese or in Spanish. Really, it would probably be in French because that's the laddering. Speaking of laddering, the video here will talk more about laddering and what that looks like. But the general idea is using one language that you're a little bit more confident in to help you with another. Something that can be confusing, because I actually did get this question once about, how does French help you with Russian? Because my ladders is I use Spanish to help with French and French to help with Russian. When I say helps you with, I don't mean that understanding French helps me understand Russian. I literally mean I type in French, how to learn Russian in French, and I look up the French to Russian websites. That's what I mean by it helps me to learn. So if I'm using Japanese, I'm going to type in Kankokugo benkyou suru hoho, like the way to study Korean in Japanese. And then I'm going to use that website in Japanese, Korean only as much as possible. But again, I talk about it more in the video. And then sentence building, which is using sentences to help you create more sentences. There's a more in-depth process of what I do. And I literally created a system around this because I needed a repeatable process for my own language studies. And then I shared it with members inside of Fluency Mastery Lab for free. And then I was like, I should share this with more people. And so I did. And I created Sentence Building Pro. So now that you've had this mindset shift of embracing 1% of progress, because now you recognize that 1% is better than 0, you have some ways of tackling this and making it a little fun, or focusing on repetition and exposure. Now you're confronted with this new challenge, the fear of failure. Now you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, but what if I mess up? What if I make mistakes? I already recognize the perfectionism might not have been helping me all the time, but I still need help with this. Guess what? In my next video, we're going to talk about how to overcome the fear of making mistakes so you can stop letting fear hold you back. So if you're ready to focus on 1% of progress in your language studies, then click the like button. I want you to comment on what your 1% of progress looks like in your lingo studies. What would this tiny step forward look like? Or some ideas that you're having? And if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the video where we talk about how to overcome that fear of failure, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss when that video drops. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.